Greetings, everyone. Welcome once again to our Sabbath Insight. I am Chief Yuya, and I am the Chief Jegna of the ANU Nation and Head Minister of the ANU Life Global Ministries. I want to welcome all of you coming in for the first time, those of you coming in who just started coming around, so maybe second or third or fourth time, and of course, longtime listeners. All right, let's jump right into it. So I wanted to build with you today. The past couple of segments, we've been dealing with just the mentality of an evolved being and the mentality of one who is sort of going through their healing process of reversing some of the mental trauma and the spiritual stigmas that, some have put on us as a result of maybe dogmatic affiliations with different religions or different church cultures or other religious cultures and structures that really just are not doing it, that don't necessarily fit the bill. So I wanted to speak on that and, created this sort of, I wouldn't call it a series, but string of correlating thoughts and ideas that we've been covering. And in this one, I want to speak about knowledge. And more specifically, what we really know and what we don't know. We know there's a beautiful scripture that says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free," right? And some years ago, I did a breakdown on that actual scripture and what it means to know and what it means to be made free. I know oftentimes that one is misquoted as "the truth will set you free." But you can be liberated. That would be a setting. But to be made something is like to be remade. Just like if I acquire a wife and I make her in my image, I'm acknowledging that she was previously made, maybe in the image of her father, maybe in the image of a previous lover, maybe in the image of an invisible husband or invisible father, i.e. the state, the stock, or society. But I have the opportunity to remake her in my image so she now can properly assimilate within my household. So to be made something is a process. So knowing the truth and being made free is an actual process. And I wanted to cover that a little bit. This is not going to be a long insight. I know every time I say that it ends up being about 60 minutes exactly, or usually about 6 minutes or maybe like 65, 70 minutes, but we'll see. So the reason why this is so important, because sometimes we get to a place where we don't really know what we're standing on. I can recall a conversation that we had in our internal ANU space with our community and family. Maybe, I don't think it was even a month ago. And we were going over just some of the sort of ideas and concepts that in some senses maybe require a certain level of conviction and belief and faith to accept outside of, does this make sense or not? And one of the things that I had shared, we were talking about some historical things. And I said, ultimately, I don't really know. When you're studying, regardless of what you hear me teach, and if you go and look online between podcasts and YouTube videos, I have probably now close to 2,000. I know our last count was like 1,200, something like that, just for the podcast. So I'm going to just, between the Orisha channel, that's the name of the channel, the Orisha, between Sadulu House, between ANU Nation, between this channel, ANU Life Global Ministries, between Enlightenment and Transformation, between the Chief Yuya channel. That's 6 right there. And there's actually more channels than that. There's also Osiris Life Coaching, some videos on there as well. And then I have some older channels that I've had since literally YouTube started. Because I was a beta tester when the software first came out. That's when I was really heavy in the IT field. And I was a beta tester, so I actually have one of the very first accounts. So yeah, there's a lot of videos, right? Or a lot of teaching. And even with all of that teaching and with all that I've shared and all of the questions that I've answered, some things Yeah, I don't know. I can give you a theory. I can tell you this symbol is often interpreted as this or as that. But the gravity and the weight of understanding won't sustain itself under sort of like a blind faith conviction. Some things it will, but some things it won't. And that's where we start to get into the higher levels and the higher understandings of what knowledge really is. It's very easy to grab something and say, I believe this, this is what it is, I'm going to believe this to the day I die. Okay, that's, you have always the opportunity and the choice to do that. It's much more difficult to leave a door cracked. You go into a certain room of a structure and a matrix of understanding, or rather of knowledge, and you say, but I'm going to leave the door open just in case, right? And it doesn't mean that I am not committed to being in this space or in this room, based on the example. But I'll leave a door crack because my understanding is flowering and evolving and branching. And, that's one of the most important things in the acquisition of knowledge. Sometimes we go right from knowledge to sort of this stagnant sort of projection of said knowledge. And what that means is like sometimes as soon as you learn something, you start wanting to tell everybody. And, that's a normal and natural reaction. Sometimes it could be in a moment. You could be reading something and you could be sitting next to someone. It's like, oh, check this out. That's a natural reaction to do that. Or you might hear something in this video and immediately share it. Like we always say, like, share, subscribe. Well, I don't really say it much. I know I'm supposed to for, I guess YouTube health and longevity. But yeah, you might immediately share what you've learned or, what you're reading or what you've come into contact with. But do you actually understand it? So it's very similar to a lot of times when I'm speaking to people and I'm explaining something and they're like, yeah, I understand you. And I always say, no, you don't. If I'm telling you something that I know is brand new to you based on your behavior, if you're acting as if you're the product of the color red and there's no other colors in you other than those that make up red, and I introduce another color to you, another perception that is not evident in your action or your words or your speech, I know it's new to you. And if I say it, you kind of listen and you're like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but how could you understand it if you have not put that color on? If you have not said, okay, well, let's say if I'm not a visual artist, I don't know what's not in red, but I'm just going to say green, and please excuse me, visual artists, because I don't know how to mix colors really and make them. I know how to make them darker or lighter. That one's pretty easy. But so yeah, so I say, okay, well, here's some green, or here's brown probably is in there, but here's some green. And until you step into the world of green and be green, you won't understand green. You may have knowledge of green and you may mistake your knowledge for understanding. I know what that is. Okay, and we can know what a lot of things are. I mean, think about for those of us who have like gone through any kind of formal education, think about the amount of things that you learned in 4th grade or 5th grade or 7th grade that you don't remember. And then when you got to middle school, how the subjects expanded and you got to move from classroom to classroom now, and there was bells and there was a concentration. You don't remember those things. High school, don't remember. College, grad school, don't remember, right? You ever look at your transcript, those of you who've maybe gone on beyond, or maybe even high school, but have gone on beyond high school and had to pull your college transcript for anything, and then you're looking and you're like, I took that class, I don't even remember taking that. And you don't remember one thing at all from a class that you sat in for several months, and passed. but you don't even remember taking the class. So knowing something is not the end goal. Knowledge seeks to go somewhere. Knowledge doesn't want to stay at knowledge, because if it stays at knowledge, it becomes dead. It dies. Knowledge wants to go from where it's at to understanding. That's its own personal ambition. And you can't get to understanding without time. There's this association with time and wisdom. We know when we look at the supreme mathematics, we have knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. But wisdom is the time that you put into applying what it is that you now know, so that you can come to an understanding. And for some, they don't want to go through that part. Now, of course, it requires study. You have to study to know. It's not just enough my study is I listen to Chief Yuya. Or like I've said before with people in my own community, we have study groups on what we call Yom Revi, or you might call Wednesday. But we have study on those days. And sometimes there are people who come unprepared. I'll say, okay, look this up or watch this or read this, and then when we meet again, have this. And then they'll come and it's like, nah, I didn't get a chance to look at it. You got a chance. We always have a chance to do something, even if that means you have to sacrifice an hour of sleep or 2 hours of sleep or half an hour. You got a chance. You just didn't do it. Just say what it is, right? But then they want to have a conversation about something they know nothing about. So now it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. So knowledge is not even being born. It's not even going through its full cycle, but it's not even being initiated, so that we could all have a combined understanding, because we know that 1, 2, 3, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, born's equality, right? So we can't even have equality because we're not even starting with knowledge. If I say, hey, everybody read this pamphlet, and everyone doesn't read it, then we won't have equality, right? And then people will generally in society, not in my community, but then they'll be upset because we want equal. We want to be considered equal. That you establish the same footing of knowledge first, right? So it becomes very difficult sometimes for people to understand that, because of the way things are taught in Western education. And then when you start going beyond sort of the logical and the more linear sort of thought, and you get into esoteric thought, there is Eastern esoteric and there's Western esoteric, and esoteric and exoteric. Esoteric deals with the just real simple, deals with the inside. Exoteric deals with the outside. So I think sometimes it's very valuable to take Western esoteric and create sort of an acronym WE, right? And take the W out for Western and put white. And if you understand that, then you'll understand why maybe you're not understanding something, or it's not really resonating with you if you're not coming from that perspective and that agenda, right? So, and that's no shot to, Caucasians. There's certain, and not that I'm being an apologist, but there's certain concepts and ideas that people need to understand in order to really maximize the human experience. And one of them is the conceptual thought around certain words. Just like if I say black people, that's not really even a term I use. Black, I'm not black. My shirt is black. And I'm sure you can see a contrast between my face and my shirt. So I am not black. But there's a consciousness associated with the word depending on the context. So the same thing with white. There is no white people. They're more like peach colored. They're closer to that, and but there's a concept and there's a consciousness that's associated with that term white depending on the context, So yeah, a lot of times our approach to esoterics is completely off. It's just gain the information. And that's it. Once you have the information, when someone asks you a question, now you just show the linkages between the information. But Eastern esoterics or holistic esoterics understands that everything is already linked. So the planets are linked to different minerals on the earth. And those different minerals on the earth are linked to the minerals that are inside of our body. So therefore, what is inside of our body is also linked to the planets, right? And then we have whole systems that are created around those concepts, right? And this is more of an esoteric thing, to be honest with you, because people think that astrology is very esoteric. It's not really as much, because it's more dealing with your physical constitution or your material constitution, which also would encompass your feelings, and your brain activity. So sometimes if you identify completely with how you feel all the time and you're living under the authority of feelings, you will always throw up, well, I'm a Leo, I'm a Cancer, I'm a Pisces, I'm a Scorpio, so that's why I do this, right? Because you haven't really understood that that's the exoteric of things. And yes, you are connected to those planets and to those different phases because of how it connects to the microcosm of you, but that's not you, and you have to rule over you, right? So knowledge can be tricky for some in that sense, because we're taught, we'll just collect it and then now I'm good, I know. So what do you understand? And you won't understand until you go on your own personal journey. That's why I say just listening to me and asking me a bunch of random questions is not going to give you any understanding whatsoever. People think they could do that. Well, Chief, let me ask you this. Well, Chief, let me ask you that. Chief, I wanted to always ask you this. Why? Why are you asking me so many questions? Because you're trying to skip. You don't want to take the time. What is the time? The wisdom. You don't want to go through the wisdom journey. It's like a man who doesn't want a woman. If we understand that the man is knowledge and the woman is wisdom and the children are understanding, you just want to stay with knowledge, but you don't even want the woman. So you'll never have any understanding. You won't have any understanding without a woman. You won't have any children without a woman. It is what it is, right? So at some point, regardless of your gender expression, because I know that there are females who express as male, and there are males who decide these are choices. They decide to express as female. But regardless of what your gender expression is, at some point you're probably, if you decide, hey, I want to have children in my life that come from me, I am going to need my complement, right? I'm going to have to go on that journey. And that's the time part, right? To yield an understanding or a child or a star, different ways that we can look at children to create gases. Those are your children. So in the study of sort of gaining understanding, we can't just get stuck at knowledge. That's where we get turned around every single time. And even when you go into biblical literature, right, you have the famous story in the garden, right? And we know that the serpent was the liberator in a sense, because the serpent proposed a knowledge journey, a wisdom journey rather. I propose that you take this journey through wisdom. But, it's something important to understand about the symbolism of a serpent and why that serpent appears so often in mystic studies and esoteric studies. And oftentimes when you see a depiction of an archetype, a deity, not far behind, you'll see a serpent or very next to you, because of the great and grand perception of the serpent. They're very perceptive creatures. Snakes, for instance, do not have external ears like you and I, or some of you may have, some of you may not have them. So I don't want to make an assumption. But snakes themselves, they don't have external ears. So if you see a snake and you want to scare it away because you're scared and you start hollering, it's not really going to do but so much. Snakes, however, internally have all of the same components that we have as spirits living through humanity. They have the same components, but they're inside, but they have no external ear. And those internal components link to they link to their jaw, as opposed to like how you and I have a hole or two holes in the side of our heads to listen and vibrate the eardrum and get our information that way, our auditory information. So a snake relies on vibration. And even through that vibration, it doesn't still, quote unquote, hear nearly as much as you or I do. So it completely has to rely on perception in order to figure out what's happening. It literally puts its ear to the ground, literally, because the closest thing to its ear or its receptacle, its receptor for hearing would be its jaw. So, because that's where it feels the vibration throughout its whole body. To know, okay, there's a stampede coming, or somebody's walking, or it's an animal nearby, or whatever. So you'd be better off stomping on the ground if you wanted to scare a snake away, or hitting the ground with a stick or something. But nonetheless, so you oftentimes see that depiction near different entities we might call deities or archetypes or gods or whatever term you want to use. You'll see the representation of that Naga serpent. And it's so important because sometimes we get stuck with the Naga thinking that we've got everything that we need. And the Naga itself is a vehicle to understanding, but it is not the beginning. The beginning is the knowledge, is the knowing, and the truth shall make you free. The truth is what we're looking for, regardless of who's speaking. We should always be looking for the truth, the actualized energy of what's being said. It could be being said from anyone or anything, right? It could be a force of nature that reveals truth to us. It could be a river. It could be the ocean. It could be the water in your shower and how it hits your body and calms you in a way, or the self-care that you put into just in, taking soap and cleaning your shoulders or your elbows or your feet in that moment of pause and care and concern for yourself, that there could be truth in that where you learn something, So being able to have that, or to sort of experience that, is a part of the time that we take through wisdom. Right? So we don't end with knowledge. We don't end with wisdom. If you want to associate wisdom with the serpent, or associate it with the dragon, or any other reptilian energy that you feel to, that's completely your choice to do that. And I know the reptilian thing is always often big because people feel that, or I don't want to say feel, that's the wrong word. There are theories that some might call conspiracy theories, where there are reptilian races that are controlling the thoughts and the minds of society. And if those reptilian races are behind X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, or any of those other sort of mediums, then you would be absolutely right. Because those mediums definitely do, there's an agenda for mind control. No doubt about it. It's plain as day. It's not even a secret. There's been several ex-employees who've come out and shared about the algorithm, and people still go in on it, But let's go back to knowledge and wisdom and understanding. So a lot of times you'll have that representation of the snake, and oftentimes you'll have the snake in the tree. Right? And it's very important to understand why you always see that snake in the tree, because there's a choice that's being presented to the listener, we'll say, in that moment when you see the snake in the tree. And they both almost could seem the same, right? If we were to look at a pole, what is a pole but a branchless tree, right? It's a tree that's had its branches removed from it. No different than a tree trunk, right? So if we were to look at a pole or a staff, We go to Moses' understanding, and then we look at a snake, a straightened snake, if it ever could be, then we'd say, well, these sort of look like the same thing, But there's a huge difference that we have to understand. And once you really internalize and integrate that difference into your thinking, you won't have a problem in that area. Again, trees have branches. Snakes don't have branches. Once you get that, you're straight. Now, what does that mean? That means that the knowledge that you should choose to stand on should branch out into other areas. It should take you on a journey, because the journey is the only way that you'll gain understanding. The understanding is the leaves on the end of the branches. So you may have the base of the tree or the trunk of the tree. I got the knowledge. Where's this going to take me? Follow a branch. That's your wisdom journey. And then at the end of that branch, it's going to be a fruit or a leaf that you can consume, or that might even fall to the earth and continue the life cycle of that particular group of or species of seed and tree. You see how it becomes a sustainable thing. It's very much like a tree in nature, right? We talk about the Garden of Eden, and anytime you see that, we have, again, a Naga serpent on top of the crown, that's associated with the brow chakra. And I'll get to that because that's a very important symbol that oftentimes is misunderstood by those who are digging into Eastern esoterics with the proper Afro-Shemitic understanding, right? Because I know some might say, well, he talks about the Torah, and now he's talking about pagan beliefs. Truth. The truth shall make you free. I talk about the truth, period. Wherever it's at, I talk about the truth. If it's relevant to the growth and the health of my community that the Most High has chosen me to preside over, they're going to get truth from me. That's what I do. So I'm not stuck in a stagnant sort of line with no branches to it. That would mean that I grab the serpent. Some people are grabbing the serpent and they're thinking that they're rejecting the serpent and went to the tree, and they didn't go to the tree, they went to the serpent, because there's no branches to what they do and there's no fruit. And it doesn't have the ability to sustain itself. If you go deep into the forest, a lot of people, and I read a lot of books and watch a lot of, and listen to a lot of podcasts and watch a lot of instructionals on agriculture, because that's something that I'm into, And one thing that I personally know that I would never challenge someone, because even when I had a farm for some time, I was still a neophyte. I was still learning as I was going. And there were people who were far more advanced than I am, and still am. I'm still learning. I can grow food, but I would still consider myself to be a beginner, right? A novice. And so I never argue. I listen. But the thing about it is that you have all of these different techniques that we're taught as it relates to farming and what kind of fertilizer, even when you're coming from a natural perspective, right? Bunny urine and bunny droppings are like some of the greatest fertilizers you could use. So if you don't have a problem sustaining rabbits on your farm, they're great for fertilizer. Some of the best, because they don't burn up the grass. It's not acidic at all. They don't burn your crops up or anything. Like if you just put any other kind of urine on your stuff or any type of other droppings, it's just full of nutrients, right? Cool. Some will tell you to not use any sort of wood in your fertilization or your composting, because it makes the soil more acidic. But me, personally, I always look to the forest. The forest doesn't use fertilizer. It's just twigs, sticks, pine needles, and leaves. And it uses that for composting. It doesn't even get watered other than what it receives from the rain. Crops do not have to be moved around. Even when you think about the turning and the tilling of soil, typically when you till soil, the top layer gets dry and it blows away. There's a whole nother science to that, right? So I always look at, well, what is the forest doing? It doesn't seem like it ever has a problem growing anything. But once we start to manicure things and separate things and make things sort of very inorganic, now we have to work triple times as hard to get stuff to grow. And sometimes we don't realize we're working against ourselves. You know, you think about what happens when you till, when you turn the soil over on your plots. What's the very first thing that happens? Everybody knows you get weeds. And you constantly got to pull the weeds up. Why are you getting weeds? Because nature is trying to heal itself. So it grows the weeds to now cover what should have been covered. That soil is supposed to be covered. It's not supposed to be out there plain like that. So nature immediately brings weeds up to cover itself. We pull them up. We keep nature from doing what it's supposed to do, right? So very similar to the process of knowledge. There's a natural way that this thing goes. And sometimes we get confused on that because of WE, Western slash, right? But Western esoterics, you know, or exoterics. There's a different sort of approach. So when we're looking at the snake that doesn't branch, we'll grab that thinking that, oh, we got it now, we're good. When you should be looking at the tree, what do you got to do with the tree? I got to climb it. Oh, boy. Well, can't I just stand here and let one of the fruit drop and I eat the fruit and learn everything? No, doesn't work that way. You might not even be able to process the fruit in your system until you go through the journey. Yes, you touched the root, or rather, I should say, the trunk of the tree. You got the knowledge, great. Now you got to climb. The climbing takes time. That's the wisdom for you to now reach the understanding. But the serpent is always in the tree and is like, you ain't got to do that. Just grab me. Don't I look just like the trunk? Just grab me. And you'll have all the knowledge you wanted. But knowledge wants to become understanding. Knowledge wants to grow up to understanding so that there could be equality in the community. The serpent isn't telling you that part. The serpent is like, you will have this knowledge. Your eyes will be open. What about everybody else? F them. You see? So when we really look at, again, like you could look at the supreme alphabet for this. This is why we have zigzag, zig, right? And zig and zag are the most like each other, and zag is the most unlike. Zigzag, zig is the letter Z, the 26th letter, right? And with zigzag, zig, you have your first horizontal of knowledge. It's knowledge, wisdom, understanding. I don't know how that may read on the camera. It might be backwards, so I could go this way too. For those of you with backwards, view it, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. That's a Z, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Now you notice the wisdom is diagonal, because a lot of times for us to negotiate our knowledge, we have to learn the angles of how to present and to hold on to what it is that we know. Sometimes when we just going on a straight line of knowledge, we cause a lot of damage. You know, that straight line of knowledge is when you come back home. Like I know there's a very sick festival coming up, Thanksgiving. There's going to be a lot of people going to be around their families. And they just learned something, right? And they're going to be, you know this, and you know you shouldn't be eating that, and you know this, and you know that, right? And they may not present it in a way where it's actually received because they don't have the wisdom on how to deliver and express and project knowledge, you know? So now you go on over there and you're just turning everyone off from what you're saying. And you know, I'm not trying to say that, well, everything has to be said in a way so that people will receive it, because some people are dead set against receiving what you're talking about. So regardless of how you say it, they'll say, well, maybe if you said it this way, nah, that didn't work. Well, maybe if you said it another way, nah, it still ain't working. What if you know, ultimately, truth is truth, you know. But you have to learn how to wield that weapon and that power of truth. It could be weaponized, or it could be used to heal. It could be a healing balm. And once you learn to do that, then you will have an understanding of what you know. Zig, zag, zig. You see? So knowledge, that horizontal line on the top, now becomes the horizontal line on the bottom. It's gone through its process of wisdom through time to figure out how should I express itself, or how should I express myself, or how should I perceive what is known, so that way when someone else is expressing, I don't get confused. You can't do that by just parroting me. I'm gonna make that very clear. It's funny actually I'm saying that, because I was on social media yesterday cleaning up something in my inbox, and I saw someone who well, I could tell she still watches all my stuff. Peace. But she was like more of an outlier, but she was kind of part of the community. But she used to get the information, and at one point she wanted me to teach her directly, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, she would be almost my apprentice, and I was like, you're not at that level that I would do that. And she left when I said no. And she became very like social media large. Like, she's big on social media. But I look and I'm like, but you still don't know anything. But you say a bunch of like ambiguous nothing, you know? And people go for that because they don't want to go for the journey. So if you get on there and you say, make something up, 2025 is coming. 2025 is it's a deep time, because you have the 2025. Now, when you look at the two deals with partnership, but then you have this 0, this emptiness in between the partnership. Well, that emptiness is actually the emptiness of the womb, because this is when partners need to go through the womb and they come out as a 2 to be a better one. But you have the 5 on the back. So 2 plus 5 is 7. 7 is the number of God. So as a 2, the partners go through the womb together. That's the matriarchy. That's putting the woman back on the throne. Then now the God will come forth in 2025. It's time for the woman to be put back on the throne. And even we were talking about the Naga earlier. Do you know that the Naga society in India was a matriarchal society before they were conquered? So it's 2025 is now putting the woman God back into position, right? Nothing. I said nothing. But if you don't study and you're using that for your study, it'll be like, that's what I was feeling. Right? So this person teaches like that. Well, I don't even want to call it teaching, because that's a disrespect to teaching. Still don't know anything. You still don't know what you're talking about. You still just, but they said something. It was so funny. The one that I clicked on, I was like, let me click on one. I don't want to say what it was, but it was an exact teaching of mine, like word for word. But it's something I taught maybe 10 years ago or more. And it was like, I'm like, so you going back to my old videos? Because people do that when you have left. Because I got old videos that only got like 200-300 views, and even though they're like 8-9 years old, but they just got lost and buried, right? In the YouTube, in the YouTube world. So I have seen people go to those old videos like, well, no one's gonna, if I copy this, no one's gonna know, because no one's watching this, no views. Well, I know, because I'm the one who said it. And it's like word for word. They would, I don't want to say it, because, yeah, screw it. They were talking about how, I'm not gonna say word for word, but basically what fear does, how fear keeps you from learning and expanding. I know she might feel a way, but if you tell me that you felt the way about what I just said, you just proved what I just said. You should watch it. But I know you are. But the energy, even I was picking up on when I watched the little clip, I was like, you still don't understand that though. You still don't understand what that means. You're parroting me. You have the knowledge of it. But how was I able to say that? Is it because I parroted someone else? Or is it because I actually, and I remember in that segment, I feel like I showed an image, but maybe I didn't. But I actually even cited a study that was done about the coiling of the double helix and what happens when when their cortisol levels are high and they're fearful, versus when they feel love and they're relaxed, and how those cells soften. I'm pretty sure, because it was a study done in Switzerland. That's my journey of wisdom. All right, let me get some wisdom on this. Let me go through the process, and even looking at my own youth and other people. Like, yeah, if you want to teach a child something, don't holler at them. They're not learning in that moment. Yeah, you can get them to go do something, but they stiffen up. They don't hear anything. It's like when you see like, I don't like rodents. Right? I have no love for rodents. Now, I don't mean rodents like squirrels or chipmunks, which technically are rodents, but bats, rats, mice, not my thing, right? And you know that thing that happens when you see something that you might have an internal fear. I don't want to say as deep as a phobia. It's not that deep, because I have touched mice. I've touched those unclean things. I have. I don't want to talk about animal cruelty, but I've caught bats and stuff like that. That I've gotten into the house. But that thing when there's fear and you hear that ringing in your ears and you can't hear anything else. And it's like the world goes gray for a moment. Like, you could be in your house and you see a mouse run by and it's like, and you can't hear the TV or anything just for maybe 10 seconds or whatever. You freeze up, nothing gets in that sense, So knowledge becomes this very interesting thing in that sense, because yes, it has to be received, but then it has to be tried through a journey. That's the wisdom journey. It's the water, right? Wisdom is water, so it flows. It flows, and it takes time for something to flow. We only know it's flowing because of time. And then once we learn how to use it, okay, well, this is when this should be said, and maybe I don't need to say this. Or this is what should be held on to, and maybe this shouldn't be held on to. See, that's getting wisdom about your knowledge. And then you now have an understanding of knowledge. Oh, now I know when to use this. Now I know when to say this. I knew about it, but I didn't know when it should be applied. You see, the application of knowledge is the wisdom. The speaking of knowledge is the wisdom. The conducting, the acting out is the wisdom. The truth you shall know the truth. Know means to do. When you break down that word in that scripture, it means live out. You shall live out the truth, and it will make you free by the way you are, not by what you saying, but by the way you are living. Knowing that's like just having it stuck in your brain. But if you break down the scripture, it didn't actually say just like receive it and hold it. The word literally was walk. You shall walk the truth. So you shall walk in that truth. You shall manifest that truth. And by manifesting it, being it, walking in it, then you will be free, right? So I wanted to sort of point that out, because it's not just enough to watch these segments, take notes, and then say like, well, I took notes. I get so sick of hearing people when they say that to me when I ask them a question. I got notes on that. I don't care about your notes. I shouldn't even know that you have notes. You don't see me with notes. Only time I make notes is when I want to not talk so much. So I'll make notes. Sometimes you'll see me glancing to the side because I've written some notes, but only because I don't want to go off too far on a particular subject. So I'll say, okay, you're just going to talk about these 5 things or these 7 things. And sometimes in my notes it'll say like, don't talk about this, that. Like, don't go down that branch or that branch. Just keep them right here. Save this, and I'll even like highlight it, save this for the next one. Right? That's it. But I don't even need to do that. It's just so that every segment doesn't turn into 3-4 hours, because they easily could. And as some of you know who've been with us for a while, go to Enlightenment Transformation, you'll see 3-4 hour segments and then some, right? So I don't care about your notes, because if you just keep saying, well, I got it in my notes, that means you're not walking in it. You haven't applied it. Because if you've applied it, then you would understand it. You see, that's the zigzag zig. It's not just enough to have the zig. You have to consider the way energy moves through the planet. A lot of times we think that things are just spinning in one direction, and that's not the truth. If you actually do a study on physics, energy moves in a sort of a pendulum sort of fashion. It'll go clockwise, then it'll go counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise. So if you just want one way clock, I said the wrong word. But if you some of you might have caught it, so I'm just going to say it before you say it in the comments. Clockwise. But if you were just to go in one direction, right, you would eventually spin out of control. Think about right now, like if you stood up right now and started spinning, if you just kept going, you would get dizzy. But let's say if you spun one way, and then you stopped and then went the other way, and then stopped and went the other way, you wouldn't get dizzy, right? Now, essentially, this is the sustaining of gravity. Don't worry about that yet, because you won't find that anywhere. But I know that from my magic esoteric studies back home, right? But things just like Ashe, it moves in different directions. It's a spiral that goes one way, then goes another way, then goes one way, and it goes another way. Now, to the untrained mind, this would seem contradictory, because you want one thing just to go one way. No, it zigs and it zags. Zig, zag, zigzag, zig, zigzag, zig, zigzag, zig. And if you notice with the letter Z, if you just make one more line, you have a helix. Right? Even if I'm just tracing and drawing it. Now I have my genetic double helix, my DNA double helix, right? So in order for us to sort of sustain ourselves, that's what I said, the sustaining of the gravity of the knowledge that we have to be able to pivot in different directions. But when we're just trying to go on, well, tell me what it is. Is it this? And then I say something that speaks to another branch. And then the person may come back a year from, wait a minute, I'm confused because you said this before. So what? In order for knowledge to sustain itself, it has to spin in different directions. It's similar to when I first started to really want to understand polygyny. And I tell people this, and I don't know if they've taken on to it, but I spent like a year just studying polyandry. Because I had practiced plurality before without putting a name to it since I was a very, very young boy. I don't want to say how young because you're going to laugh, but I always had at least 2 girlfriends. And then in high school, the number got ridiculous. I'll just say that. And they knew each other. It wasn't like secret, I'm cheating on this one, but it was ridiculous. It was ego in high school. But the thing about it with polyandry, when I was like, well, no, it's time to learn this thing for real. Like, I wanted to understand what would make me okay with sharing my woman in a polyandrous arrangement. What does that look like? Because it's very easy for me to just stand here as the man and say, yeah, I like you and I like you. Yeah, that's real easy. But to some degree, small degree, try to put yourself in her shoes. To some, I can't really, because I can't fit her shoes. I better not be able to fit her shoes. But I can't fit her shoes. And my chemistry is different and I'm wired differently. I'm a man. I'm not wired like a woman. So the way I think is different. The way I see is different. My lung capacity is different. So therefore I take in more oxygen than she does. So my brain functions differently. My body temperature is higher than her. I mean, we could just go on and on about the differences between she and I. However, to some degree, I wanted to understand. To some degree. So I just studied and studied. You mainly have that in the Himalayas. You don't have too much of polyandry, around the world, primarily in the Himalayan mountains. I took like a year just to learn it as much as I could. And then I would create these scenarios in my head and like, okay, if, like I would, my friend, I would think about a friend and like, okay, if he was with my woman and I'm with my woman, like how would that work? Like, how would I feel about that? And, what feelings come up immediately? What thoughts come up immediately? How do I process that? Am I okay with that? Am I not okay with that? All the little things. And then I would go to more extreme sort of examples in my study. Okay, she falls in love with an 18, 19-year-old guy, a lifeguard, a swim instructor. He's got a perfect physique and all the other things that I used to have. Maybe he looks like a younger version of me, How do I work with that? And that really helped me a lot, honestly, because when I then would engage with my own family, I would understand a little bit more about some of maybe their insecurities, some of the statements that they would make, or some of the trouble that they would cause when certain things were happening, the defiance and the rebelliousness, because I went to the converse. And mind you, in my own culture, we don't do that. My own culture is not polyandrous. So I wasn't trying to implement that within my culture, my spiritual understanding. I was just trying to get a better sense, an empathetic sense of the human story. Just trying to understand person to person, like how might this feel? And, what are some of the thoughts that may come up? I don't know if they will, because I'm not a woman, but, how much of this perspective can I understand from the other side? See, so as a result, I am a winner at polygyny. I won, it works. And I'm naturally polygynous, but my households work, right? And I'm not just saying, because some people say, well, so all I got to do is just watch the video on the Himalayan, and then that's it. So that's people who say things like, if I do this, how long is it going to take? So if I do this, I'll get that. You'll never get it, ever. Because people who get it don't ask questions like that or approach it from that perspective. They go on the journey, the zigzag journey, and they understand this. Remember when I was doing this? What's happening there? Because if you put the helix on its side, you have the letter N, but what else do you have? You have infinity. So that process is a never-ending process. You think like, well, I got the knowledge now, I got the understanding, now I'm good. No, it starts over again and over and over. How long I gotta do this for? Until you stop breathing. That's how long, until you stop breathing. But my suspicion is that you'll be doing it after you breathe. That's just my suspicion, though I don't know yet for sure. But that's my suspicion, based on my understanding of consciousness, my understanding of inertia, my understanding of energy. If you're doing it now, you're gonna keep doing it. So when you understand that this is a process and it's a time process, and there's an application of knowledge that leads to understanding, you don't get stuck on a snake. Some systems you'll see, the awakened person has the naga on their crown or above their crown. And people think that that's a very spiritual sort of representation. And it may be for some. And what that represents is that the naga is saying, I will always be better than you. The serpent is saying, I will always be better than you, because you'll never be able to perceive at the level that I can perceive. That's what that represents. Now, some, they take that and go, well, I'll say that's what it could represent. I don't like to be definitive because it may mean something different to you. But if you know, you know. If you know, you know. That's what it represents. If you study, you got to study those systems to understand. I disagree. I would maybe put a tree on top of my head, but that tree, I would be the root in the soil of said tree. A serpent that doesn't branch off to anything, but only can perceive. Now, that's not enough for me, because perceptions can be manipulated. That's not enough. So we need to grow and regrow and regrow and regrow and regrow and regrow in order for us to truly maintain understanding and to evolve understanding and to evolve knowledge. Knowledge wants to evolve to understanding, but it wants to go from knowledge to born. Because again, after knowledge goes to understanding, 1, 2, 3. 1 + 2 + 3 = 6. So now that we have the 6, we have understanding, right? Even when you look at the zigzag zig, it's the 26th letter, right? That's wisdom, equality. So now that I go through that wisdom process, I'm able to now create equality or be equal with things that are around me, forces that are around me, which now allows me to get into a space where I can build and destroy. Now I can build and destroy responsibly. I'm a responsible scientist now. I can build and destroy because I have become wise in my head, in my thoughts, in my mind. I've become wise to what is actually around me and what isn't. But when you just lead with knowledge, you can't read the room. That's the cipher, the 6, the equality, being equal with all things that are in the space. You come into the room and you can't read it because, but I know what I know, because you think you got this new knowledge. It's like this weapon that you have, and now you're attacking everybody with this knowledge because you haven't achieved equality yet. You don't know how to just drop a little bit and pull back. Someone asked me recently about the holidays. No, it was for Halloween. He was like, oh, so you doing anything for Halloween? And I just said, oh, I'm not a fan of it. I knew in that moment, that's all I had to say. And that's what I should say. I didn't need to break down the origins of Halloween or Hallows Eve in that moment. I didn't need to do that. I could have said, well, the Day of the Dead, I love the Day of the Dead. I'm all about ancestral veneration, but that's not really what the Day of the Dead is. People love it. Even people in the spiritual and esoteric community. Do whatever you do, but if you know better, you know better. And if you know better, you do better. But my response was just like, I'm not a fan of it. Kept it moving. That was the response needed in that moment. So understanding knowledge or having wisdom to knowledge and wisdom to the practical application of knowledge, you know when not to weaponize it. It doesn't need to be weaponized. And once you have that understanding, then now you can establish equality with the person who might be saying, well, I do Halloween. Okay, cool. But we can still build and maybe come to an understanding. And if you build with me long enough, I bet you won't be doing it next year. But I could chase you away if I have a lack of understanding of how knowledge should proceed forth, because I'm thinking it should just go in this circle or go in this straight line. And now it's spinning out of control. You do this long enough, it's going to get so fast, it's going to spin out of control. You got to go the other way sometimes. Go that way and go that way sometimes and go that way, or be able to do concentric circles, right? Try that exercise. I just did it. I do that all the time. Well, not all the time, but I do like with people who are having trouble like balancing their left and right brain or their masculine and feminine. A lot of times I advise them to do concentric circles. And it's a fun exercise because usually people can't do it. It takes, like when they first try it, people will be like, I'm doing it. No, it's going to say, oh man, I'm doing it. Now you're going to say, no. So, it's a good way to kind of loosen people up who are struggling. That's a form of knowing wisely how to apply knowledge. I know you need to synchronize and align left and right hemispheres, your masculine, your feminine, your dark and your light, your negative and your positive, your yin and your yang. And I could tell you that and you'd be like, huh? All right, do this with your fingers. Take one and go this way and take one and go the other way. And do it at the same time. And when you got that, then come back. So that's an important thing for any ruler, for any king, and for any queen to be able to establish equality in your cipher, because your family is such. And if there's not equality, then you don't have a family there. You have some sort of weird arrangement that will eventually become toxic and turn on you. All right. So I just wanted to share that. Now, I don't know how long this was. It may have ended up being the same thing. But I wanted to speak on that just in terms of our mentality, of how we're approaching our studies. And for you to understand, it's not just about collecting a bunch of information. I went to this lecture, went to that lecture. I went to go hear this one speak, or go hear that one. So what? I got this book. I got a new book. I got that book. I got that. What are you walking in? Because once you start walking and applying knowledge, you're going to realize something. You ain't got time to be going from lecture to lecture. You're going to find one good teacher, one good enlightener, and you're going to rock with that enlightener, and then you're going to apply. That's generally how it goes with people who finally do get it. Everybody else, they just go from here to here to here, and then they boast about, I studied with this one, I studied with that one. Oh, I know so-and-so, that's my man. I know so-and-so, she's like a mother to me. Those are people who never know anything. You ever really talk to them and start questioning them, you can tell there's nothing there. Because they haven't gone through the wisdom process. They don't know when to speak or when to be quiet. And I certainly don't want that for any of you. I certainly don't want that for any of you. Because then my work would have been in vain. It would have been in vain. I am not particularly concerned about you being super knowledgeable, but I definitely am concerned about you being super aware, having understanding, and being able to manifest the best and highest parts that exist within you. That's what I'm concerned about for everyone who's watching right now, even those of you who copy my information. Hopefully, as you're parroting, you're also listening, and it's transforming and changing you. Don't just parrot just to get views or to get people to give you money for consultations or whatever little merch you're selling. If you're going to be in this, you might as well be in it. If you're going to be parroting and listening to, ooh, that was good, let me write that down. Let me say that on my next story, my IG story. If you're going to do all of that, then you might as well try it out a little bit. Try to live some of it and see what happens. Whatever brings you here, I don't really care. I don't care if you were brought here because you want to steal. I've seen people even jacking my slang and trying to be like me. And it just looks weird. It looks weird. But one of the things because our cultural influences are what create our personality. And I am a hodgepodge of all of my influences. And I have an understanding of those influences. Why? Because I lived it. So I understand it. So when I say certain words or may find certain things humorous or I may stress certain points, is because of the experiential journey that I've had. When someone comes and copies that, it's like, it doesn't resonate the same way because it's not coming from a place of understanding, because they didn't go through that particular wisdom journey. No one will ever go through my journey. I will not go back through my journey. I can't even go back and say, well, let me go through this again so I can get that understanding again, so I can talk like this again, or do music like that again, or be able to fight like that again, or lift this much weight again. It's over. It's now. What are the influences now? Where is your spirit persuaded to now? What is the soul expressing now? Now, of course, there's always going to be residue of then. So then that makes then now. But it is still my then, and it is mine now. Just in the same token, I can't replicate yours. I can't replicate your wisdom journey. It is your wisdom journey. We may start on the same tree, but we're not going to go on the same branch. It wouldn't sustain both of us. You might cut to the right, I might cut to the left. And some people may say, well, the right side is evil, or most people say the left side is evil. You go to the left side of the tree, that's the dark side. That's where it's evil. If you go to the right side, that's where it's good. It's the same freaking tree. So whether it's dark or light, whether it's Da'ath or whether it's Yada, it's just different forms of knowledge. Da'ath is hidden knowledge. Yada is seen knowledge. It's like Oyeku Meiji and Eji Ogbe. Oyeku Meiji is all that's unseen in the universe. Eji Ogbe is all that is seen. They are the when you deal with the Odu Ifa, they are the grandmother and the grandfather Odus, because all Odus come from Eji Ogbe and Oyeku Meiji. All come out of those Odu. So everything comes from light and dark coming together. It's just like when we say, let there be light. It's all light. That's cool. We want that. But at some point, all of that fire has to cool down to form stars and to form planets. You see, so it's not just this fiery blaze of light forever. That wouldn't create anything. It's the cooling down. And this is science. This is not even like mysticism, but it's the cooling down that now forms, different life forms. It's the cooling down of that heat, right? So there has to be that interplay between hot and cold, or light and dark, like I said earlier, or male and female, or knowledge and wisdom, in order to bring forth the product of understanding. All right. So willfully, that assisted you a little bit in your journey this strong. And, as always, thank you for the comments, man. There's been some really beautiful comments left. And hey, let me put this out there before I forget. So there's been like people who have shared like just their appreciation for like the information. And I don't mean like the usual like thanks. I appreciate the thanks too. I don't want to snub those. But there have been people who have appreciated like just like, wow, I didn't even know you were here. And I think I've been getting that response for like over a decade now. Everyone's like, where you been? I'm in my skin. Like I can't tell the algorithm what to do. But for those of you who have like found this space and the teachings, man, I just want to give you a special shout out. Welcome, on your journey. Here there's a lot of content and a lot of information. And of course, being a part of the ANU community kicks it up, a couple of notches, because then I get to, I don't have my YouTube in public filtering on when I'm speaking. I can actually just speak and teach what needs to be taught at a deeper and more intimate level. But also the thing about that, and this is for anybody who's on that sign up form right now, like, I'm gonna sign up. There are expectations. That's the difference. So when people are always like, hey, Chief, I'm one of your YouTube students. No, you're not, because what homework did I give you? You could be a supporter. I definitely appreciate that. I definitely appreciate the support. But being a student means that I'm going to put expectations on you. If you come to the community and there's a particular challenge that I peep with you, I may not let you in the doors yet until you resolve that challenge. Or once you get in the doors, there may be pressure on you because, hey, we gotta deal with this. Just like any tree, this isn't a serpent community. I have said so many times that any cosmology that you see around this, there's a tree included. There's always a tree, right? So because there's a tree, I'm expecting growth. I'm expecting branches. I'm expecting to see the fruit of your work. See, so there's expectations. I'm not saying I'm expecting to see that in the first month, but if you're around soaking up the information and you're asking questions and you're being given love and attention, because I knew we always loving up on each other and checking up on each other and all that other kind of junk, whatever. That stuff grows a person. It grows a plant, So if you're in the community and you express, hey, I'm going through something, or my mother is sick, or my father got into a car accident, he's sick, and the community like rushes in and maybe even may take a trip with you. We've had that happen. Go see your family. I haven't seen my family in years, or we don't get along. I'll go with you. I've seen that before, where they road trips. Okay, boom, we're gonna go together. Or this or that. And you're getting all of that makes a plant grow. It makes a person grow. Best believe I'm watching. So if you're coming in with the same, you got a certain issue, maybe unfortunately for a lot of the sisters, it's like these very sick senses of gender. I don't trust men. I just trust women because I was raised by my mama. Right, okay. So we got to deal with that. Sometimes we got that with the guys too. Well, we got to work on that. Because you ain't gonna be sitting up in my community, looking up in my face, asking me questions every time you get confused, and then turn around and say out of your mouth, I don't trust men. What the H do you think I am? So we ain't doing that, right? So there's gonna come a point where you're gonna have to get that settled, or thinking that it's a community that a guy's gonna come in, which I have checked them out before. This ain't a woman bashing community. though I was red pill before the red pill community. So you may hear a lot of sort of concepts that align with that, but no, we need mommy and daddy. We need mommy, daddy, and baby needs mommy, daddy. Okay, so this isn't a community where there's a bunch of guys and it's like, yeah, man, the heck with them. I'm just being, I'm being civil in my language. The heck with them, man. It's about the brotherhood. Let's get our money and let's do this and let's just be. You don't like women? What's up? This ain't that. This ain't that. Even if we may call out, or I may call out some of the sicknesses in our sisters, or some of the sicknesses in our brothers, it's to end the war, not to ignite it and fuel it. It's because I love my brothers and I love my sisters. That's why if I didn't love you, I wouldn't correct you. And some people know the difference because they know the difference when, like, if I'm like, yeah, I hear you, you got it. They'll know because some people have been around long enough to be like, I hear you. Because they know, like, what did I do? Like, yeah, because they know once I say that, all right, do what you're doing. Right? Whatever. The love is gone. The thrill is gone, baby. The thrill is gone. So I would definitely say for those of you who are considering or have talked about it or thought about it, just keep that in mind. This is a community where growth is expected. It's expected because of what's put into the individual. And if you want to grow, this is the place to be. If you want to just be confirmed in what you know now and don't want anyone challenging what you know, because I know what I know and you want to be confirmed, I'm going to tell you the best thing to do is to start a YouTube channel. That's the best thing to do. You can start a YouTube channel. You can even turn the comments off. So you could just say whatever you want to say and no one will have anything else back to say unless someone does a reaction video, which you ain't got to watch that, But if you are in a place where you're saying there's a zigzag zig that goes on forever. So even though I may think I know something, there's always more expansion of my knowledge or understanding, or maybe what I think I know is incorrect. Maybe I don't know what I think I know. And I need to be, see, that's the greatest value of community. Because how does anyone know anything? Let me tell you something. For all you know, you could be a brain sitting in a glass jar with some diodes hooked up to you going to a machine. Because think about how vivid dreams are sometimes. So we know how vivid our sensory experience could be. Sometimes dreams could be so vivid that you urinate on yourself or you punch your partner in the face. I have been guilty of I will admit, like waking up and swinging and hitting people, not real, because the dream was just so vivid. I was being attacked, or kicking. I have definitely kicked, or stuff like that, because it could be so vivid. How do you know that's not happening right now? You're just in some scientist's laboratory, just a brain in a jar being kept alive, or some brain in some formaldehyde, just having some residual past life memories. Well, you could think about your senses. That doesn't mean that they're accurate. It's not I don't prescribe to I think, therefore I am. I prescribe to we think, therefore one of us at least is. So the beauty and the amazingness of community is when you ask somebody next to you, do you see me? Or, you might have something that you think, like you see an elephant flying in the air and you go to your comrade, do you see that? See what? All right, I'm hallucinating. All right, never mind. I'm hallucinating. See, that's what you need in community, because community confirms your reality and your existence and your presence. And that's why people run away from community, because they're afraid that they may find out that they don't really exist. You see, or Yah forbid, what I think is wrong, or this situation happened to me in my life and Chief said I caused it. You telling me it's my fault? Any times I've heard that? You telling me it sound like you blaming me? What, you're blamed? Like, you can't possibly be at fault? That's impossible. You've never considered that could be a possibility. It could be you. But that's the beauty of community, because you get the verification of your own existence and realization through the attention that others put on you. And that attention, now it creates a form, a crystallized form. If we don't attend to each other, then we don't really exist. And attending to each other is tending to one another's thoughts and questions and concerns, you see? But when everyone just, I just go inside, I just go inside, you may not be real. That's why you may be stuck inside. You may not be able to interact with anyone or anything else, because perhaps you might be an apparition. You might be a bodiless incarnation. So it's through that exchange with each other that we verify our existence, asking. And that's why you can't be afraid to say certain things or ask certain things. Like, yeah, if you see something flying in it, hey, you see them lights in the sky? They might say, yes, I do see them. I said, yeah. I remember one time I was out with one of my consorts, and we were, I have no idea why we went down there, but it was like an elementary school play. This is like at night. It was probably like 11 o'clock at night. I don't know why we went down there. Maybe to get on the swings or something, no one else. And I saw a spirit inside of a bush. And I didn't say anything. And I saw her do that. And I said, you saw it? She was like, yeah, I see it. It's in the bush. She and I always see spirits together, like all the time, That's a verification of my existence and her existence, but also we're letting each other know that you ain't crazy. Because we both saw it. We're constantly seeing, we could be walking somewhere and we'll both do that at the same time. And, oh, you saw it too, right? Yep. Okay. That's the importance of community. That's one of the importance of community, is the verification of the evolution of your own sight awareness and your own thoughts, And without that, your existence becomes questionable, even on a subliminal level. You start to really question, am I really here? Do I really exist? So I just wanted to share that. Again, we're probably over 60 minutes at this point, but I want to thank all of you for coming through. As I said before, if you're interested in joining this beautiful community of ANU, you can always go to anulifeglobal.org. The link is always on the top of these videos, and there's more in the description of the videos for you to give you even more information on if you want to donate, if you want to link up through joining or whatever. We're here for it. All right. Until such time, I am Chief Yuya signing out. Shalom.